Good evening, everybody. Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Dialogues with Doc. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me on this evening for this week's edition of Dialogues with Doc. I am Dr. Calvin Green. I am an educator by profession, but I also love to have great conversation and great dialogue. So I want to take the time to welcome each and every one of you tonight to tonight's Dialogues with Doc conversation. I'm so excited because I started this thing 3 weeks ago, and it just came up as an idea that I had. And so far, we've had a bunch of great topics. For those who have been rocking with me from the very beginning, I thank you guys so much for joining me. The first week we did um, the importance of your dash. So we discussed your birth date, your death date, and the dash in between, and how important that is, and how your dash affects other people. Then we turned around last week and we talked about the power of social media. So we talked about the power of social media, the good, the bad, the ugly. Talked about some great gave some great insightful information about social media, and then we also ended up talking about the love all you can while you can movement. Well, this week I want to keep the conversation going and keep that same momentum and things going. But before we get started, you know how we do it. Let's go ahead in the chat and do a quick check in. Tell me where you guys are watching from. Where are you guys watching from this evening? Thank you guys so much for joining us. Please share the broadcast. I'm so excited. I am also able to announce that I have a YouTube channel as well. So anything that we discuss on the show is immediately uploaded to the YouTube channel. So please like, please subscribe, please share. And we're gonna keep this thing going. So if you're if you're watching live on tonight, let us know by commenting where you're watching from. I see my cousin Shahinda's in the building. She said South Lake, Texas. What's going on, cousin? Thank you for joining on tonight. Anybody else out there? Where are you watching from? Please feel free to chime in. We want to see where you guys are watching from each and every week. Each week, this thing gets better and better. I'm so excited about tonight's topic as well, which is the real on mental health. I see my other cousins watching. Hey, Nook, you're in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Thank you so much for joining tonight, cousin. You know, if can nobody else support you, your family gonna support you, and I love my family. I see my brother, first class Ken's in the building, all the way from Miami, Florida, by way of the DMV. Man, thank you so much for joining me on tonight. So I thank you guys so much for joining in on tonight. I'm so excited about the topic for tonight's discussion. I want to share and just be quite honest with you guys. Tonight's topic was so special. Yes, this show is called Dialogues with Doc. However, for tonight's topic, I needed some extra help. So tonight we're going to have dialogues with the docs. So there's more than one doctor in the building that is trained professionally and personally to talk about the topic that we're going to talk about tonight. So I'm so excited about that thing. Tonight, before we get started, I want to put tonight's dialogue activator in the chat. So before I bring my guest on tonight, I'll be bringing them on shortly. I want to put the dialogue activator in the chat for you guys. So tonight's dialogue activator is simple. Why do you think society has us scared to discuss mental health? Tonight's dialogue activator is, why do you think society has us scared to discuss mental health? So put in the chat for me why you think society has us scared to discuss mental health. And I want to see what you guys are going to say about that, because that's going to help lead and guide our conversation on this evening. Why do you think that society has us scared to talk about mental health? Anybody? Why do you think society has us scared to discuss this thing? Because it's not bad all the time. It is actually a good topic to discuss, but I think that society has us scared to talk about it. Anybody out there want to chime in? I got looking to see what you guys are going to say before I bring the docs on. Why do you think we're scared to talk about this thing as a people, as an African American population, just people in general? Why are we scared to talk about this thing? It's real. We have to deal with it. We have to talk about it. My brother Dr. Lofton said some view it as a weakness. I definitely agree with that. Some people do view it as a weakness, which is why they don't want to talk about it. Anybody else? Why do you think society has us scared to talk about mental health? Good job. Good job. That weakness thing is crucial. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come back to this question before the show is over, because I know after this great wealth of conversation, we're going to have a whole lot more to say about it. So do me a favor. I'm going to bring on my guest for the evening. Give me 1 second. I want to pull up. I'm working hard over here, trying to make this thing right. Give me 1 second. Where's my thing? All righty. Got a little glitch. Give me 1 second. Got it. Okay. So my guest tonight, I am so excited to bring them on. Tonight's Dialogues with Doc, I decided that it was imperative that we talk about the truth on mental health. So I needed some help to do this thing. So I said, let me reach out to one of my awesome colleagues, and she reached out to one of her awesome colleagues as well to help talk about this thing. So I am so excited tonight to be bringing on none other than Dr. Chakoria Wells and Dr. Delon Isom to the conversation. So you guys do me a favor. I got my little applause ready for them. We're going to clap this thing up. I'm bringing in my guest to the conversation.
Hey.
Hello.
How's it going, Doc and Doc?
We're well.
Listen. Thank you, both of you, so much for joining me in this conversation on tonight. I'm going to put you guys' names up. Bam. It's official. I got the docs in the building to help me discuss this thing called mental health. So Dr. Wells and Dr. Isom, thank you so much for joining tonight. I want to start the conversation off by just telling the people a little bit about yourselves, who you are, what you do, how you got there, and then we'll jump right back into the conversation and talk about this thing called mental health that isn't as bad as people think that it is. So go ahead.
You want to pop it up?
Lady first.
All right. So first, thank you, Dr. Green, Dialogues with Doc, for extending this opportunity for us to talk about mental health. So thank you so much. My name is Dr. Chakoria Wells. I'm a school psychologist by practice. And this is my amazing brother. I had to bring him along, Dr. Isom. We both received our training from Howard. I'm going to speak specifically to my training. At Howard, I was in the school psychology program. I did most of my training in school. I did training at Children's with concussions, and I also did training at Kingsbury and at Friendship, where I'm employed now. And I did my internship in Arlington. And so I always knew I wanted to be a school psychologist in the school. And so I stayed that track, but I originally wanted to be a lawyer, but God said otherwise. And so now I have my own company, Wells Consulting Service, that consults with schools with educational plans as well. And I have Dr. Wells, PhD, that advocates for parents and letting them know how to meet the needs of their children educationally and advocate for IEPs as well. And so that's what I do. I love being a school psychologist.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. I thank you so much, Dr. Wells. Thank you so much. Doc, it's on you, man. She brought you on. She couldn't do it by herself. So my brother, we're going to tag team this thing.
Super grateful, super appreciative. Thank you for even having this space. I think it's definitely necessary and needed and very timely. Like Dr. Wells already shared, we both completed our doctoral training at Howard University in school psychology. My trajectory was a little bit different because after some of my experiences in the school system early on, I recognized that there was other avenues that I kind of wanted to go down and utilize the training that I got for mental health. So I did do some training in the schools in PG County for a couple of practicum experiences. And then I quickly decided that I wanted to get more into forensic assessment and more clinical training. Mm-hmm. So I did some externships in the DC Superior Court. And then I went on to complete my internship in Bexar County Juvenile Probation in San Antonio, Texas. Following that, I went to Los Angeles, California, where I was a postdoc fellow at Children's Hospital Los Angeles, specializing in adolescent medicine and behavioral health. And then I traveled back here to Howard, where I'm now an employee in the University Counseling Service, more on the administrative side. So I oversee the intake process. I also oversee the data and research components of the Howard Counseling Service. I also have my own consulting company, Let's Get Free LLC. I do educational consulting, testing, also help with program implementation, evaluation, all of that in between, and just trying to help people get free. So that's a part of my purpose and my cause, and hopefully we can help people get free here tonight.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And I love how you guys both are in the profession, but you've had different treks to get to the point to where you are now. So thank you guys both so much. You said Bexar County, and I'm originally from Dallas, and my family's originally from Corpus Christi. So I know exactly where Bexar County is in San Antonio.
Yeah.
And Dr. Wells didn't want to share, but that's my girl. She's from the boot. So I love her as well. Louisiana's in the building. Yeah. So Dr. Wells, Dr. Isom, thank you so much for joining tonight. And I want to bring this thing in a little bit. So I'm going to change my screen to bring this in a little bit because
let me line up.
I want to talk about mental health to start the show off from this perspective. So let's talk about mental health, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So when you hear the words mental health, the good, the bad, and the ugly, chime in on there for me from both of your lenses on what that phrase, how that kind of resonates with you when you hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. People are scared to talk about it, but there actually can be some good things that come out of it. Some not so much, and then there's another side of it that on the professional side we'll never experience because we're not practitioners that are able to deal in that vein.
I think one thing, what I love about us, we have a cohort and we talk about issues. We have safe spaces. And one thing that I like that Dr. Isom and I, we call ourselves the family, we talk about a lot is that in the Black community, I think the church kind of puts a negative connotation on addressing mental health because they say that, we just pray and God is going to address the issue. And so we have to get away from praying and saying that God is going to take care of things and then not thinking that therapy is okay because church and therapy, they are not like that. We think that they're mutually exclusive, but they exist in the same realm. And I think one of the things that Dr. Isom does with Let's Get Free is a part of his umbrella, and I'll let him speak to that, is that you can go to church and you can have a therapist as well. And that's part of being free. And I think that we have to address the stigma that, yes, I can pray to God and I also can go to church and listen to the principles that the pastor says, but I also can go to the therapist and listen to what the therapist says as well. And the Bible talks in Proverbs about wise counsel. And just like you go to the doctor, that's for our physical bodies, that is for the heart. You go to the cardiologist to work on the heart. You go to the podiatrist for the foot. And you go to an optometrist for the eyes. You have to go to a psychologist for the mind to be able to treat the things of the mind. And so we have to start breaking the stigma of looking at what actually goes on in the mind and stop thinking that it's bad. And so I'll let Dr. Isom talk about, his campaign and Let's Get Free and breaking that stigma.
I appreciate that plug. We are modeling what it means to support each other in our community. So a little bit about what Dr. Wells mentioned is one of the taglines that I want to kind of start to market through merchandise and do just like some of our branding is get you a therapist. And just to normalize the idea of having therapy with a lot of the millennials and the Generation Z, it's now being cool to have a therapist. People are actually bragging about going to therapy and what their therapist said. Well, we want to see that translate to some of the boomers, some of the older generations, just to normalize that process. And with that, hoping that they learn that, to your point, or the question earlier, the good, the bad, and the ugly, that there may be some bad and some ugly things that come about from uncovering some of those layers and unturning some of those stones. But the good part about it is now you have someone who can help you navigate some of those challenges and guide you through those processes, because you don't have to suffer for life and you can heal and you can become whole. And so pairing that with the strategies that we get from the pastor in the pulpit and the coping that we learn through our Bibles, having that professional to kind of help walk you through that is the good part that comes from that. So get you a therapist.
I love it.
And the ugly part too that I want us to address is that one thing that we talked about a couple of weeks ago in just the conversation that we were having amongst each other was that some of the things that we learned and that we were conditioned because Big Mama did it is because Big Mama did it, because Big Mamas did it and Big Mama did it, but we don't really know why we did it. And so we have to really learn why are we conditioned to do the things that we do and to have a meaning behind it. And so when we start to dig and go to therapy and really understand why we do things, is just because somebody did it, and it's not a practice, but we really uncover like the ugly truth of, it's really not a tradition, it's a way of life, like we Big Mama did because that's the way that she preferred, and it's okay that I don't do it the way that Big Mama did it, and I create a new tradition for that.
I want to go back to something you said, Dr. Wells, and then I'm going to touch on something Dr. Isom said. We're in a nation where we're so focused on the separation of church and state, but you said a separation of church and therapy. Therapy is a good thing, and people shy away from it. But for a lot of us, therapy provides that balance that we need. I'll say Dr. Wells, for instance, she knows I will come in her office some days and wish she had a couch so I can lay on it just to desensitize me and to just bring me back to reality. Sometimes therapy is not bad. So we focus on separation of church and state, but there needs to be a separation of church and therapy, because therapy can provide balance for those that actually seek it out. You are right. A lot of millennials are saying, I went to see my therapist this week. I mean, you have insurance. It helps cover some of the costs of therapy. So just like you go to the doctor for your annual physical, why not seek out a therapist to help you navigate as well? And then Dr. Isom said, if you get nothing else from tonight's show, hashtag get you a therapist. That's the tagline. Hashtag get you a therapist. Therapists are individuals that will not give you biased opinions on things. They're going to give you the good, the bad, the ugly. This is where you went right. This is kind of where you messed up, and this is kind of where you need to, I don't want to say it's a weakness for you, but an area of opportunity for you to get a little bit better. And then I think Dr. Isom also said there's a meaning behind the therapy. When you go to the therapist, be intentional with it, because you don't want to feel like you're wasting your money. And so when you go into that therapy session, it's okay to, this therapist isn't working for me, let me find another one. It's okay to say that this therapist isn't giving me that extra umph that I need, so let me find somebody else. So no, thank you guys both so much for that.
Yeah, and can I just add and jump in there, because I think that's a very real reality. This idea that it doesn't feel like I match with my therapist, or I don't feel like things are getting better. I also want to emphasize the fact that a lot of us are going to therapy with 20 and 30 years of challenges. And as Shakur was speaking to Dr. Wells, just these organizing principles that we've been carrying around, and we don't even know why we do things the way that we do. And so I'm saying that to say that don't be so quick to kind of jump therapist. Actually, I think it's a better practice to actually share with your therapist what's not working. Share with your therapist what you feel like you can get from it. Because that's a part of the process, actually engaging in interpersonal, conflict resolution, or actually saying what your true feelings are. And a lot of us don't have those skills. We could be 50 years old and don't know how to talk to each other, don't know how to share what's not working for us. And so rather than just, jumping ship every time, use that opportunity with a stranger, with somebody who is going to give you, like, as you were saying, that real deal information to get what you need.
Mm-hmm.
We had a comment. Jasmine said therapy is so important, but many of us have been conditioned to believe that if you need therapy, then it's bad or you're crazy.
Oh no, that's not true, Jasmine. And I really wish that people could get past that myth. And one part of you, when you're in a graduate program, especially in psychology, like they encourage you to go to therapy while you're in your graduate program if you're going through psychology. And I remember in our respective program, like each one of us had something very impactful that happened to us in life that brought us to therapy. So I lost my uncle, and so I had to go to grief therapy to be able to get over that, because it basically, me losing my uncle had basically paralyzed me, and I couldn't figure out, like, I didn't have the strategies to to go on. And so I had to relearn how to cope, because that was the first person that was very close to me that I had lost. And so I speak out now. And then even now, me and Dr. Dyson, we talk a lot about like just having a check-in with your therapist to make sure that you're not internalizing things and that you're not projecting things. And for us, it's important for us to have those check-in with our therapist to make sure, like, you know, am I making sure that I'm not internalizing these things, because it's important for us to have that balance as well. And so it's not about that you're crazy. It's just that you have to make sure that you're your best self and that you're healthy, because if you're not, then you have to realize that you start to project your insecurities onto people. You start to project how you perceive things onto people. And sometimes your perception and how you see things is not the reality. And so you need somebody else to show you that. So therapy is not that you're crazy. It's that you need people to give you another perspective as well.
I agree.
Dr. Woods, I'm going to go back to something you said. And I'm over here. I got my little show notes because I like to take my notes. You said that the therapist needs a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
Can y'all talk about that for me? How the therapist needs a therapist. I think a lot of people miss that, where if you're coming to me telling me all your problems, sometimes I need my own therapist to help me not take on your problems. Especially as educators, we're conditioned to want to help everybody and want to help save the world. So I find my times having to leave work at work and not bring it home, so that I don't bring those things over here. So can you guys talk about why it's important for the therapist to have a therapist?
Man, at the base of it all, we're still human, right? And I think there's this Superwoman syndrome that people tend to walk around once you get certain credentials, once you accomplish certain things. And the reality is life still goes on. Challenges still come to all of us. Shakuria shared a little bit about her grief. I also experienced a significant loss when we were going through the program of my grandfather, and I needed to practice what I preach. If I'm going to be someone who was pushing this idea of therapy being healthy and therapy being helpful, I also need to be engaging in it to figure out how to improve myself. And so it's a misconception that because you're a therapist that you don't need that help and that assistance as well. So that's really what I think is the base of it. And just to add on to that a little bit more is, talking to someone and just getting those thoughts out is super helpful. We all know that. Some of us have a good friend that we can call and just vent to, and we feel so much better. Some of us would prefer to share some of those things again with a professional or with a stranger. Mm-hmm. We feel like we're less likely to be judged. We feel like we're less likely to be given skewed information or biased information. And so therapists definitely do need therapists too. So if you're a therapist as well, get you a therapist.
Get you a therapist. I want to go back to go ahead.
I just have the other part too is that even now with COVID, and I was talking to Dr. Isom about this too, like we've had to adapt the way that we cope. So we thought COVID would be over quick. I'm having to adjust my coping strategies because I know both of you personally, and we travel. Mm-hmm. We can't travel. So the way that I cope and the way that we cope is traveling. And so I'm having to readjust how I cope, because it would be like, okay, I could check out with work and I could go travel. Yeah. And that's been taken away from us. And so now is, how do I have sustainable coping strategies? And that's hard for me. So I've had to readjust and figure out as a school psychologist, like, how am I going to go into this school year knowing that I can't do the things that I normally do to cope?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's real. Like, we honestly thought we left the building in March, thought we would be back. We still at home. Right now, the passport is the most useless thing in this country, outside of what, I'm not gonna go there. But yeah, this passport, we can't use the way we want to use it. So we have to find alternative coping strategies to help us navigate. I kind of want to go back to Jasmine's comment as well about the therapy. So why do you think dialogue surrounding this topic of mental health is avoided? Like for just you can speak from the personal lens or the professional lens. Why don't we talk about this thing?
It goes back to, I think, how we grew up. You know, you got to keep the business in the house. You don't tell other people our business.
House business.
You keep our house business in the house. And who is that on the phone? You don't tell anybody our business. And I think that kind of crippled us in a way. And then it also, and I'm trying to break the stigma also with, not teaching kids to talk back. Like, we are taught things that kind of cripple us, and is basically we don't talk about our feelings, we don't talk about our emotions. And I also think, and I want Dr. Isom to speak about this with the male perspective, like we men don't show them up, like, you better not cry. So I think that with mental health, it's like an onion. It was so many things that we were taught that are tied to generational issues within the Black community. Like, you keep our business in the house, and you don't show emotion. It shows weakness, and it's just so many things that are related to our history and our culture that we just have to break. I think that that's part of the dialogue of mental health and why it's avoided.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you guys that are watching, I'm sorry, we're engaging over here. As you see the questions, you can comment as well, and we'll share some of those responses as well. So please engage with us as well. I'm sorry, Dr. Isom.
No, you're good. You're good. So I agree wholeheartedly. I think it is the way that we've been conditioned. But I think another piece of it is it can be scary to kind of go into a doctor's office, any kind of doctor's office, given our history as a people with being experimented on and being, not treated the best. Not receiving the best support and practices. But it also can just be scary to go and learn that what you've been struggling with your whole life actually has a name and it has stigma attached to it. And so I think it's easier for us to avoid learning those inconvenient truths. And so rather than go and uncover those things, we would prefer to just do things the way that we learned how to do them. I'm like this because my grandpa and my grandma was like this, and so they made it. So why do I need to go talk about this stuff? This is how we deal with it. We pray, we keep it going, we keep pushing. That's the only choice that we have. So I think some of the avoidance comes from the fear of just learning that what we're dealing with has a name, learning that what we're dealing with is attributed to one thing or another that we've been through. So on top of all the stuff that we've been taught, I think it is just a fear. And it's right. It's an appropriate fear.
Dr. Isom, you said that it's easy to avoid inconvenient truths. And as we continue to avoid them, we eventually end up living a lie. We're not living our true whole self. And it begins to eat away at you at bit by bit. And we end up losing ourselves as individuals potentially in the process because of these inconvenient truths that nobody wants to talk about. So thank you for that. My next question is just to find out so the viewers may have a question. In your profession, do you primarily offer mental health support to adolescents or adults? And if both, which do you find more challenging to support? So in the line of work that you do, is it more adolescents? Is it more adults? Is it both? And, which one can be more challenging in your opinion? With these inconvenient truths.
Do you want to go first?
Sure. So I work with the entire age range. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, my specialty is 12 to 25. That's my preferred age bracket, adolescent mental health. But naturally, when you're working with adolescents and students, you have to work with adults because they have parents, because they have teachers, because they have caregivers. And so there's a component, element of that where we have to kind of morph and not lose sight of who our actual client is, but also engage the families and the other systems that they engage with as well, because we can't work with a child and try to change them and then send them back into systems where those things won't be reinforced or supported. And so we definitely work with the full age spectrum in that regard. But then also in my work and my experiences, I've had opportunities to work with adults. And I'll say this is my politically correct answer. And it is the truth. The reality is, for me, they're all the same. There is not one that's more challenging. Where the challenges come in, though, is that in my opinion, with adolescents and younger youth, they're a little bit more amenable to change. You see a lot more immediate changes in them because their brains are still developing. They're still learning things. And so when you start to kind of, make those inroads, you can see changes right away. Whereas with adults, again, this is years and years and years of these problems that you have. and they're less likely to let go of some of those things. And so I won't say that it's harder to work with them. I will say that it requires a little bit more patience. Like you're not going to see the change that you see in some of the younger ages as quickly in terms of adults. So it might take 7 or 8 sessions before you even start to hear some of the deep-rooted stuff. Whereas the kids and adolescents, they coming in right away. So and so did this and this happened. What can you do to help me? So that's my stance on it all.
I would say
thank you.
For me in my profession, I see both of the challenges from the perspective of them going back into their respective systems. So I work with K through 12, but I also work with their families, and with the children they're like Dr. Isom spoke to it, they are the most amenable to change. So you're able to make them most impactful when you have them 8 hours of the day. Mm-hmm. However, when they go back into that ecological system of the home, you kind of break down everything that they've learned with you in those 8 hours, because they're back into the environment that they've been conditioned. And so you have to go back and build them back up to how you want them to be, because they're in their most comfortable unit. And so, you can be impactful and they're most amenable to work with, but it's like every day you're reconditioning them to be the person that you want them to be. And so I have mentees, and I worked with someone from when they were in 9th grade, and I saw a progression of change up until they graduated. And so that was 4 years of work, because they were going back into the same condition. So I feel the same sentiments, but I also have the most experience with K through 12. I don't really have a lot of experience with working with the adult population, other than doing interviews with parents in the school system. And they want to paint this perception of who they are to you, but then you see the reflection of the child, and then you call them, and then you're like, okay, all right, I see. I see where this behavior comes, and everything that a child does, it has been modeled for them. And so you have to explain that to the parent, and parents are less like, well, I don't even know where they got that from. And then you make the parent a little bit mad, and then you're able to see exactly where the child got that from. So it's just that complexity that children are sponges and they model, but I work professionally with there. And they said the joy factors that you personally get in professionally from doing your work.
I put that up because you guys were both talking, and that led me into the next question, which was the joy factors. Because I just threw the question up there because you guys already started to describe them. You talked about the mentees and the just to see the progression of them from 9th through 12th grade. Dr. Isom talked about the parent evolving, and even the patience that comes with doing the work. So if you want to chime in some more to the joy factor piece, go ahead. Feel free.
I love my job, like, as much as it drives me insane. We were just talking about this, but I have to remind, and even I tell my supervisors this, like, at the end of the day, I work for the educational welfare of children. Like, that is my job. Like, I make sure that at the end of the day, that the special education laws and rules were applied to that child. And so I absolutely love my job. I love what I do in my business, which making sure that children are advocated for, and that they make sure that that their needs are met. And so I wouldn't change my job for anything like that. My nerves as much as they do, but to see them walk across the stage, to see them come back and say, you were hard on me, but I see why. And it just brings me joy now. And I'm dealing with them on the collegiate level, like Dr. Isom is now with being an adjunct professor. And I'm just like, okay, my patience is being tested. Okay. And I'm having to look at them in a different light. And I'm like, okay, my mentees are now in college, so let me look at them as a mentee, and having to shift their perspective. But it's a joy factor, definitely. Like, it's rewarding.
Yeah. I think
thank you.
I think I get the biggest fulfillment from seeing the improvements in people's lives, and hearing them speak it for themselves in a way that that there's been some actual change and some actual growth. That's like one of the most fulfilling things ever, personally and professionally, for me, because I come from a family of like healthcare workers and just people who are givers and providers and are social service workers in every aspect of the word. And so just being able to continue on and to help people improve their lives is definitely a joy to me. The other thing that I think brings me joy, and it happens very often, so much so that it's kind of scary to me, is that you get these parents who have been trying for years and years and years to get help for their kids, and no one will listen to them. No one will kind of meet them halfway or hear them out. And when you actually take the time to get a true understanding of their story and provide them with that assessment or that feedback for them, just the tears day in and day out, just the gratitude, that is something that I think brings joy and it keeps us going. Because like Dr. Wells said, we get on the phone in our group every other day, like, man, the day we had, I don't even want to go in tomorrow. But then you go in and you get those stories and you see those improvements and you hear from your mentees and from your previous clients to say, thank you. That definitely brings a lot of joy.
Thank you. Yeah, you guys, y'all are just leading this conversation where my questions are just flowing. So I just appreciate you guys so much, because y'all don't know really what I have over here, and I'm just listening to the conversation and just jumping in here and there. So this is so amazing. This next question, I'm gonna throw a curveball, but you guys will knock out the ballpark because this is just who you guys are. Have you ever had that moment when you felt that supporting others' mental health was affecting your own? If so, what did you do? Have you ever had that moment when you felt, as a therapist, my therapist can't even help me with this one. Like, I got to do something. What did you do?
So, this is hard. Well, this isn't that hard, but I'm going to speak very personally. So about a week ago, my grandmother had a stroke. And so our close cohort, we're very close. And so Dr. Ison was like, I'm overwhelmed. And so my whole cohort came together and like kind of covered me, because like they know how much my grandmother meant to me, but they know that when somebody close to me, like my grandmother, is sick, like I shut down, like I will shut them out. So it was hard for me to like let them in and like support me. So what happened was it was take your friend to work day. And so I didn't know, but it was disclosed to me that Dr. Ison had hit my other cohorts offline and was like, I'm overwhelmed and I can't be there for her today. But what I can do is like, we could be in the same space, but I just can't be there for her. And so what we have done in our close and the friends is we have advocated, and I knew that I needed to reach out to my therapist to make sure that I wasn't internalizing and projecting, but they would not let me be alone. And it is important that when you're in this profession, that you have a group of friends that hold you accountable. And so there are moments where we tell each other, like, I don't have it. And even at work, like, we have a safe space, and it is important for you to have people, to have a therapist, to know that when you're not yourself, that there's a safe space that you can go to, that you let somebody know, like, at this moment, I don't have it. And I had to let them know, like, I just told them that my grandmother had the stroke, and they knew that I didn't. They knew that those words meant that I didn't have it, and they wouldn't let me be alone. So that day it was bring your friend to work day. So that whole day, one of my cohorts was like, you got meetings at work, you gonna cry on the phone with me, I'm not leaving you alone. And even Dr. Ison didn't have it, but he checked him and he was like, you good? You okay? I don't have it. And then I had to turn around and I turned on him and I was like, you not yourself, but are you good? You okay? And so it's just important that you have people to have a safe space, but you do have to say that you don't have it, and let people have people that respect those boundaries for you.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think it's just about being honest, just like Dr. Wells just kind of highlighted. We are very honest about where we're at. And so when other people's mental health starts to affect us, we just have to have those hard, tough conversations and say, I really want to be there to support you this way, the way that I normally do, because what Dr. Wells didn't share is that I'm the type that I'm going to pull up. Like, if you're going through something, I'm there. It doesn't matter, because I know what that means when I was going through things and people were there for me, and I always want to pay it forward. But in those moments that I couldn't, we just had to get creative. And so I fell offline and told everybody else, y'all let me know when y'all absolutely need something. But in the interim, can y'all cover down, because they're in Texas, so that was their way of doing it. We got you know what, you can't be there in person with her, so we'll be there through FaceTime. So technology is an amazing thing, but I think at the end of it all is when you start to feel like it's weighing on you, you definitely have to put boundaries in place, and you have to hold those boundaries. And I know that sometimes it's hard to do that, and it's easier said than done. But I also live by this mantra that you can't pour from an empty cup. And so if your cup is empty yourself, you definitely can't be filling someone else's up. You're no good. And so you have to make sure that you take care of yourself in those ways so that you can be the best support for other people. Because I know without a shadow of a doubt that Dr. Wells would not have wanted me in her space moping and groping and being stressed and overwhelmed with my stuff too. So in those moments, I recognize that I'm a little bit limited. I have to lean on some of my other support systems to get what we need to get done.
I had definitely. I didn't eat. They ordered food to my house. They called me all, and I was like, I was overwhelmed because they were so mindful of me, and that made me get through my day. So have friends that'll be your safe space for you too.
Exactly. You have to have that support system, especially with the work that you guys both do, because it'll weigh on you. And when something personal comes your way, you're caught like a deer in headlights with I'm so busy helping others, I don't even know how to help myself in this very moment. So no, I totally get it. I want to bring up a comment and share it and get you guys input on it. My cousin said, what do you do about a child that doesn't want to talk to a psychiatrist? She shuts down on teachers, parents, and her PCP doctor. So from a mental health perspective, from a psychologist perspective, you have a child that has shut down on their teachers, their parents, and their primary care doctor. What type of insight could either of you provide to her on that response?
So for me, from a school perspective, and even just thinking about her shutting down, I would figure out like what is making her withdrawn, because she's shutting down for a reason. And with her shutting down, you would want her to talk to someone or creating a safe space for a child is something that's very vital. So kids will talk to anybody, and you just have to build their rapport. It's not about, chastising or scolding the child. And we even talk about this when we do our professional developments, that building a rapport with the child is essential. Like, people at my school are always like, well, how do you get this child to do this? And they don't do this with me. It's rapport. It's that rapport that you build. So I think identifying a trusted adult with that child, because she's not going to talk to her teacher or her parents or somebody she feels that's going to judge her or that's going to chastise her. She needs to feel that she can talk to someone that is going to be trusted. And her psychiatrist is not because she feels like she's going to give her medicine and prescribe her something. Her teachers are not because she's going to feel like they're judging me. Her parents, y'all gonna judge her or give her a punishment. So she needs to find like a mentor or a trusted adult or a sister or a cousin that she can kind of open up to, that will feel a safe space. And that's from a school perspective that we kind of see.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. Doc, you have something to add to it? Or
Dr. Wells kind of hit it on the head. And I think that strategy is applicable outside of the school as well. Just making sure that student or that child has someone that they trust to confide in. Mm-hmm. Even again, just thinking about what that might look like going to a psychiatrist, maybe even going with that person, whoever that trusted person is. Like, do I have permission to go with you? Do I have permission to kind of sit in there with you and kind of support you in that way? A lot of times people shut down because they don't know what's going on. They have fear or they don't have support. So just thinking about ways to bridge whatever gap is there. So I agree.
Perfect.
And maybe not a psychiatrist, but a psychologist. So Black girl therapist. I don't know if that's the right. What is it?
Therapy for Black girls is one of the websites.
Therapy for Black girls, and then Therapy for Black men are two websites that you can find therapists for people of color. And it's in every area. And then you could go on Psychologist Today and find psychologists for specific insurance and for specific subspecialties. So ADHD, anxiety, depression, you could specialize it.
Yeah.
Okay. You guys are going to make me ask this question and it's not even on my script, but because you said that, I think many of us don't understand the difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist. So can you guys break that down quickly for the people that are watching? There is a difference. We do encompass some of the same scopes of work, but there's a major difference between what a psychologist does and what a psychiatrist does. Go ahead.
So a psychologist is someone who has professional training, specialized training that typically leads to a PsyD or a PhD. We specialize in providing therapy and services and interventions. We can work in a plethora of different ways. We can work in different settings. Anything that has to do with people, we can contribute and work in those spaces. The major difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist that I think most consumers need to be aware of is that psychiatrists are actually physicians. So they're medical doctors. They have a different route for training. Now, what they do is they specialize in psychiatry once they finish most of their medical, like their what are those requirements?
Medical degrees. Like they physically have medical.
Right.
Yeah.
So they specialize after that. And there are some psychiatrists who do offer therapy, but that's too far and in between from my experiences. Most of them specialize in just providing psychopharmacological services, which is the medication piece. But the major difference is psychologists really go through more research and more science practitioner model or scholar practitioner model, whereas psychiatrists go through the medical model.
Mm-hmm. And there are some psychiatrists now. So I have a sister who's in the Dallas area. She's more in tune with doing it. She's on the psychiatry track. She's doing more of the research behind the stigmatization of Black people in psychiatry. So she wants to do more of the therapy route. So that when you said that she's doing medicine and she's trying to get more Black people in clinical trials too, because that's another stigmatization of Black people not going to clinical trials because what happened to us in clinical trials. But there are some psychiatrists, there are more Black medical doctors that are going into the field of psychiatry to break the stigmatization of Black psychiatrists.
And our field is quickly changing because we're also seeing that, whereas I kind of made the differentiation that psychiatrists give the medicine and psychologists kind of give the therapy, there are a few states that have given psychologists the prescriptive authority. And so that may be something that we see in future years as policy and legislation continues to change. So, yeah, but right now, those are the main differences.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I hope that helped, cousin. I'll call you later and find out. I want to kind of throw another curveball just to get you guys insight on this question. Mental health from experiences or mental health that is inherited? Does one weigh heavier than the other? So if you are suffering from mental health based off something you experienced or from inheritance, do you feel like one weighs heavier than the other? Does one more on a higher? Do you think one's ranked higher than the other, or what's your take on that?
So I'm going to speak, and this is my professional opinion. I do not believe that one is heavier than the other, and this is my professional opinion, and I'm going to state why. You can inherit some mental disorders that are genetic. And so when we do intake, we ask what is in your family history because some things are hereditary. So there are things that you can inherit from that are medical history. There are some things that are going to happen to you in your life that are traumatic that can be more impactful that can happen to you than what is genetically inherited into you. So you can have you can live in a neighborhood that has a lot of trauma or that your social economic status impacts you, and then you're exposed to more things, and so that may have a higher impact on your mental health than what you are genetically passed down with. So for me, one is not heavier than the other. It's just kind of what you are exposed to, and then you can be exposed to these things, and then your parent may be very good at teaching you coping strategies. So it just depends. Or you could go to a school that has phenomenal response to intervention practices, or that has an amazing SSST process that can help you overcome those things. And so one doesn't necessarily weigh heavier than the other. And I don't know specifically in the clinical realm. Daylon is very good with speaking from the clinical model, and so he can tell you from their perspective.
Maybe I ain't want to speak on that model. You know, put me on the spot. Everything she said is completely true. There is research that demonstrates what we call concordance rates. So we see identical twins that have similar mental disorders. We see things passed down from parents. We see also just this new realm of studying epigenetics, things where trauma is transgenerational, so it can be passed down. It's actually in our DNA. And then also, as she said, we also can experience them, and nothing is better or higher or worse than the other. It's real to people. And so we don't get in the business of trying to say, well, you didn't even experience this, it was just passed down, so that's not as bad. No, we can't speak for how things affect other people. Our job is to just help you see how it's affecting you and give you strategies to get through it. And it can show up in many different ways.
Definitely. No, thank you both for that. Shavari, thank you for chiming in. I agree with Dr. Wells. I think the experiences can help the client make sense of what they are experiencing. Thank you for that. And Womack, we see you. Your favorite people are on tonight. I'm just glad to have them in the room with me. So thank you for chiming in, Daryl, as well. Wow, let me see where. Oh wow, we this hour goes by quickly. Where am I at? Oh, here we are. So we're in the midst of a global pandemic. What best practices can you offer to help us sustain our own mental health? So as we're going through this COVID-19 pandemic, we're all on edge. We're all, we're all over the place. Like, what are some things you can offer, to just help us maintain our own mental health? I know for me, I had to start walking. So I try to walk in the morning if I can. If it's not raining, at least a good 5 miles or so around the area where I live at. That's just me. I had to. Dr. Wells knows we're normally active in the building, so if we're not catching kids on 2A or 3B, running up on them to see what's going on. We have to find other creative ways to keep ourselves active. So from you guys' perspective, what can we do? What do you suggest?
You hit it though. When you started with the exercise part, that's definitely one of the main things that we will be recommending just to get you active. It changes the way that you feel in your body, and that improves your mental health. Something that Dr. Wells and I definitely love to do is music is our therapy. And so music has this
love music so much.
Yeah, this really amazing quality of changing the way that you feel. You start to connect with experiences that you heard that song in, or you start to connect to the experiences of the lyrics in the song. So music is something that can help you. I think a lot of times too, it's just because of this pandemic, having to sit in front of a screen all day can get very tiring. Sometimes you just have to step away, walk away, shut down, get off the grid. That definitely helps with kind of decompressing in a lot of ways. So those are some of the things that I would recommend. Another thing, and I know you asked for resources a little bit, and Dr. Wells started sharing some resources, but YouTube has a lot of just guided mental health strategies that you can do. So we call it guided imagery. You can do yoga. You can actually have some relaxation exercises. Just go on YouTube and look up some of those things. Those are things that you can do in the comfort of your own home. They can help you learn to relax and learn to cope and get through this pandemic.
Thank you. You guys heard it. You guys heard some good resources here of things that you can do to just sustain your own mental health. We have to find some creative things to do. We can't go. I hate to say this, and it sounds so petty, but I finally had to clean out my Amazon cart. So you know how you see stuff on Amazon and you put stuff in the cart and you leave it there and you never go back and buy it. Something just said, Calvin, clear the freaking cart out and just get the stuff. And then the very next day, there was a meme on social media that said, I don't know who needs to see this, but you don't need anything off Amazon today. Good. I just cleared my cart out last night. So this meme doesn't apply to me because I cleared my cart out last night. But it helped my mental health to say, okay, I finally cleared my cart out. What else creative can I come up with? Dr. Wells, you were getting ready to share, and I
No, you're fine. I think that one of the things that will help us in this pandemic, and it's not a best practice, but one thing for me that I do, and those of you who follow me on my Instagram, on my personal Instagram know, is that I have a wind down process. So I light my candles when I get ready to take my shower. My diffuser is on with the aromatherapy. I have a weighted blanket to help me go to sleep. And so you have to wind your body down in order for you to get restful sleep. And also one of the things is I see a weight specialist now. And so sleep is tied to weight loss, lower stress levels. It is tied to our overall healthier well-being of life. And so one of the things that we have to start doing is making sure that we get enough hours of sleep. And us being at home a lot is not doing that because our body's like, oh, we're always at home. But you need to start having a wind down process so that you are able to go to sleep. And so that phone, you got to have a time that you're shutting that phone off and that you're not responding. And so if your bedtime is 10:30, you got to leave that phone alone at 10 o'clock and you got to start your wind down process for you to be able to go to bed. So you need to at least adults should be getting 7 to 9 hours of restful sleep. And so you need to be utilizing, yes, one may say he's been utilizing his weighted blanket. It saves my life because I have a little bit of anxiety. And so it gets me restful sleep. I'm not tossing and turning at night. So make sure you guys do whatever it takes you to do to wind down at night, to do that and make sure that you're getting enough sleep so that you're well rested. And Dr. Isom and I'll tell you, like, we don't play about our sleep. So we get enough sleep. And so make sure that you're taking care of your bodies and yourself.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like to be quick that. Yeah, Shavara, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Shavara says journaling, cleaning doesn't require thinking. Get creative, organized, get some good books, candles, essential oils, relaxing natural teas, drink water, color, etc. No, these are all great things that we can do to help cope through this thing, because we don't know how long we're going to be, how much longer we're going to be in this space. So we have to get back to the basics, or we have to come up with more creative ways of coping, because if we don't, we're going to compromise our wholeness. So no, thank you for that. I even had to get me a weighted blanket, Dr. Wells, after you talked about it, because but you're right, that thing there, that thing will bless you if you let it.
You said you let it. That's it.
Yes.
I recommend a weighted blanket. Like, that thing is it's amazing. Any other things you guys make and think of that we may can do to help cope that you haven't said already? I do know that you guys did offer some resources. Hold on, I got that. Let me follow my script. I'm trying to,
Dr.
multitask over here.
I cannot challenge people enough. Hashtag get you a therapist. Like, if you're, one thing that I can say, check with your job to see if you have insurance, if you have a HMO plan. Please make sure you check with your job to make sure that you are able to go see a therapist. Some therapists has a sliding fee scale so that they will be able to, you can get services at whatever you can provide to pay. There's a website too that if you can't afford, some therapists offer pro bono for a certain amount of sessions. Like, it's no excuse for you not to take care of your mental health. And so I'm with my bro. Hashtag you got to get you a therapist so that
I had to put those up without the ice and get you a therapist.
Copyright.
You got to trademark that thing, Doc.
I know. It's in the work.
That's a part of help you get free. What is it? Am I saying it right? Help you
get free.
Let's get free. Let's get free. Hashtag get you a therapist. You got to get that thing, man. Yeah, no, we talked about resources. That was my last question, and I just want to go back over those one more time. So we talked about therapy for Black girls, therapy for men, psychologists today. Shavari, I saw you said the therapy den is also a good one. But there's a host of other resources. The docs even talked about there are things on YouTube that offer even more insight for this therapy thing. So mental health is not bad. It's not a bad conversation to have. It's actually a great conversation to have because it continues to evolve, especially now that we're going through this pandemic. So I want to thank the both of you for coming on tonight and helping me talk about this thing. Again, like I said, this thing was so powerful, guys. I couldn't do it by myself. I had to have 2 other doctors come on here with me to give their perspective about mental health. And we talked about it from a bunch of different angles. We talked about it from some creative angles, from some personal angles, from some professional angles. So I'm so excited and thankful that they came on tonight. Dr. Wells, Dr. Isom, thank you both so much. Do me a favor, tell the people how they can keep in contact with you. How can they follow you? Go ahead.
So you can follow me on Dr. Wells PhD. And you can also check out wellsconsultingservice.com for any of your psychoeducation needs. And if you are looking to consult, and Dr. Wells PhD is a nonprofit, you can ask me any questions and for your children, and I will provide you with any resources that you need.
Absolutely. And so
thank you, Doc.
We're actually under rebranding right now, talking about COVID and the pandemic. But as far as just reaching out to me for any type of educational services and consulting, I will give my email to letsgetfreellc@gmail.com. The Instagram page and the website is under construction right now. Shout out to Visionary Customs, who's working on that diligently right now. But I definitely can share my email for that regard for anyone that is looking for services or supports.
Perfect. Thank you both so much again for joining me tonight. I appreciate you both. I will be having you back as these topics continue to evolve. Just long story short, I decided to come up with this about a month ago. So I have a short list of topics. And for those who are joining me tonight, I just want to be very transparent with you guys. People ask me, like, what is the topic for next week or what are we talking about? I honestly don't know. I have this list on my wall and I pray and I ask God, what direction do you want me to go in this week? And then I say, well, God, who do you want me to bring on? He downloads who to invite. So I'm so thankful that he told me, tap Dr. Wells, he tapped Dr. Isom. So this Dialogues with Doc thing, I'm very intentional with it, with what I put out and who I invite on the show. So thank you guys for being a part of the vision that was given to me to talk about this thing called mental health. I appreciate the both of you so much. Thank you both for joining me on tonight. Thank you guys for logging on. Thanks for the comments. Thanks for the dialogue. And I will see you guys again next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Dialogues with Doc. I'll have the topic out by Sunday. Thank you guys so much for your help this evening. And we'll see you guys soon. And follow them on social media.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. I'm going to close this out.